It's Tuesday. It's just past 7:15 p.m., which means it's time for another live broadcast of the Cole Memo. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. If you've missed our live streams, I'd say the best way to tune in is by going to colememo.com/YouTube and subscribe. You can be notified so that you never miss a live stream. We also release the podcast on all podcasting platforms or at colememo.com. You can support the show financially at colememo.com/support or by becoming a patron at colememo.com/Patreon. I'd say the best way to support, though, is just by smashing that like button, dropping some comments, and sharing with your friends. It's easy, it's free, and like I say, it's the best way to support the Cole Memo. So if you haven't smashed the like button yet, do that. And I'll be joined by a surprise guest in this episode. Smoke 'em if you got 'em, people.
The Cole Memo.
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 The Cole Memorandums. The Cole Memorandum.
The Cole Memo.
This drug is dangerous. You cannot play with it. It's not funny. It's not something to laugh about. Good people don't smoke marijuana.
And ladies and gentlemen, like I said, I am so very excited to be joined by Dave from
Hey,
how's it going? From SupportDopePeople.com. Dave, how's it going, man?
good man. How are you?
I'm doing good. About to spark up, so I'm about to be doing even better.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I just took the opportunity myself to feel real nice.
Hey, what you puffing on?
Dude, it's vape carts for me nowadays. I got this live resin thing. It tastes like oranges. I love the thing. Yeah, it's phenomenal. Hello, friends. Yeah, I don't have the ability to be in the chat at the same time. It feels weird.
It's all good. I'll make sure that we flash up comments as we go. Smoking Pots and Pans. What a great name, first of all, right?
Yeah, phenomenal.
They say happy Tuesday, folks. Yes, and it is Tuesday, which means, in case you didn't know, folks, like I said, we go live every Tuesday at 7:15 p.m. now. So, well, Dave, I'm thankful that you could join me for a Tuesday.
Yeah,
Appreciate you setting aside the time.
I appreciate you inviting me to be part of it.
Absolutely. Well, we've got a few different things to discuss in this episode, but I thought maybe let's just start it off with a little bit of an advocacy conversation, shall we? I figure you might have some thoughts on this.
I'm always that.
Yeah, I just attended the Cannabis Equity Illinois Coalition's legislative meeting, their most recent legislative meeting, and they had some things to share, and I thought I would share them here today. So I'm displaying on my screen right now their legislative agenda for 2026, and they open it up by saying Illinois lawmakers have failed to advance meaningful cannabis legislation in 4+ years. While we're disappointed it's taken so long, we remain committed to advance policy that will expand access for patients, support social equity businesses, reduce criminalization, and more. So we've done podcasts with the folks from the Cannabis Equity Illinois Coalition in the past, and we appreciate the work that they do. They're looking to support an omnibus. Last I spoke with them, I mentioned that do we call them omnibi? I don't know. Two omnibuses, that just doesn't sound right, were introduced, and I asked the Cannabis Equity Illinois Coalition, do you support either one? They said, Cole, we haven't read them all yet. We'll get back to you on that. So they were aware loosely that the fact that there are two bills out there, but they said they can't commit their support. But what they did say is that they shared this graphic and said they support these provisions. Of course, starting off with allowing medical patients to shop anywhere, removing physical examinations so that they can do telemedicine, curbside pickup and drive-through for medical and adult use, and some other things, including, increasing craft grow canopy space to 14,000 square feet and more. And so, like I said, while they didn't say there is specifically language for that yet, they said generally speaking, they're going to be voicing that they'd like this, that we'd like this as a community from lawmakers. So, any thoughts on the Cannabis Equity Omnibus, Dave?
No, I mean they're hitting it on the head. I mean, at least for the things that matter kind of more the most for me in this space. I'm a big fan of the letting medical patients be medical patients everywhere and not limiting their access. Yeah, I think they're on the right pages there. All of this stuff has kind of been possible over the last few years, and these are the things I think that everybody's been pushing for. The expansion to 14,000 square feet, like, to me, still, it feels small. I feel like if you're able to fill in more space, why not fill in more space? And if you're able to take care of more plants, why shouldn't you be able to take care of more plants? But as far as like the state goes right now, I think 14,000 is the maximum a craft grower can get, but they have to do it in like increments.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
Where just expanding all of them to 14,000 would be cool. But.
Right. I was just gonna see. Okay. I can't remember what the math was that somebody did one time, but they were saying something like, even if all of the craft licenses were operational, that like 5 of the super licenses would still be bigger than all of the craft licenses combined, or something.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and because I think I think they only like administered like 50 or something. And I don't even think that all of them are up and operating at this point. And then, even if you gave them 14,000 square feet apiece, let's assume that, let's say half of the people are a part of it. Let's call it 30 people, 30 craft growers are in part of it. Dude, that's 420,000 square feet. That's less than 2 of them,
Right. I was just about to say, I finally figured out the math. It took me a few swings on the calculator, but 14,000 times 15 equals 210,000 square feet.
Which is 10,000 less than the monsters can do.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I don't mean to call them monsters and like whatever, but they just, I mean, as far as size goes, they are way bigger than the.
Right. I know what you meant. The super licenses, if you will, or
super licenses.
Yeah. So there's that. There's also, of course, something that we've all talked about a lot, the removal of the odor-proof container. This is another one where we don't have a bill number yet, but from what I'm hearing, there will be a bill number, so stay posted on that. Any general thoughts on that? I know we've kind of beat that horse to death, but feel free to.
We'll just say the same thing again. Forget the container. We don't need to worry about what the container says. Let's just go with, if we smell cannabis, it's not grounds for us to remove you from the vehicle. Because no matter how big of a vehicle you're driving, you're not even close to the possession that some of these cultivation centers have, or you'll never be the level of distributor that some of these cultivation centers are. So to me, it just seems weird that we're still criminalizing people for possession or consumption, but forget possession or consumption. The fact that I think that I smell it as a cop is the craziest means for you to pull me out of a vehicle.
Right.
Yeah.
Well said. Very well said. Okay. So yeah, there's that provision. Hopefully, like you say, it's just no cannabis smell can be used for probable cause going forward.
Yeah, because how do you differentiate between burnt and non-burnt, or in the container or not in the container? It's just, it smells like cannabis in here. Sorry, move along. It's okay.
Right. Exactly. This is another thing. Social consumption lounges. They're saying that they're working to advance social consumption, and they have been since 2020. And they say that because lawmakers haven't addressed the omnibus, they have not worked on this issue. So I guess this is part of the omnibus. So definitely interesting here. My thought on this has always just been, be careful what you wish for with this.
Have you been to any consumption lounges, legal, like state licensed consumption lounges yet?
I had to think about that for a second. Technically, yes, but they weren't regulated under IDFPR. And that's what I mean when I say be careful what you wish for.
Yeah. Okay. Because I think no matter what, like the big thing that's missing, and it's not that it doesn't happen with some like pop-up vendors and stuff, but I think the big aspect that's missing is like social consumption with like food ingestion also. Like if we had the ability to sit down and have some food, that might make this a far more everybody's a part of it instead of just the lounge where we all go in and clam bake super hard and like, yeah. Anyway, I'm for social consumption. I'm all about it. I just wish that they would allow at some point for food to be an aspect of that.
Yeah, well said. Well said. Completely agree. So R3 funding for education grants, that's something that has been pushed for a while. This is by Representative Mayfield, who I believe in this next slide, yes, is also the representative who introduced a homegrow and caregiver expansion. This is another piece of legislation that hasn't necessarily been introduced again. However, the Cannabis Equity Illinois Coalition said in a meeting I recently attended that they will be pushing and supportive of an expansion such as the one that's being discussed here, which would allow medical cannabis patients to cultivate up to 12 plants. It would increase the number of patients that a caregiver can provide medicine to from 1 to 10 adults. It would allow,
nice.
Yeah, it would allow adults to share cannabis seeds with each other, apparently. I didn't know that. That's the first time I've actually read that. I'd like to see that language. So yeah, this would be huge. Probably one of the most meaningful reforms if we ever saw something like that. But
yeah, does that allow for adult use, just everybody growing at home, or is that only for medical that they're talking the expansion of?
Only for medical, from what I understand. Okay. Yep.
I mean, it would be huge because,
it would be.
Again, yeah, that'd be incredible.
Yeah. Somebody asked licensed lounges. So the one I was referring to that I've gone to is like Molly's Joint, but it's licensed. Molly's. So Molly's is there. It's in
Cessor.
No, that one is the Luna Lounge.
Yeah, Luna. That's the one in Cessor. Yeah.
That's another one that's a tobacco one. There was also the 3 Mile Hideaway in tobacco. There was a tobacco licensed establishment. But Molly's Joint it's an interesting one. It's almost like a retail mall. That's the best analogy I can give. And like when you go into it, there's one door that's a dispensary, one door that's the lounge, and then one door that's a restaurant, bar, grill, and gaming lounge. And so you can sit in the lounge and you can bring your own weed in, or you can buy some from the dispensary, and then you can order food from the restaurant next door, bring that in, have a drink, whatever. And that's what I love, those lounges, because there's just very, very loose regulation. Hell, they were even selling hemp ice cream and hemp drinks in there, like in the lounge.
Nice.
And that's only because IDFPR doesn't regulate it. So this is regulated under the tobacco retail permit framework, if you will. Like I say, if people can figure out how to do it like Molly's Joint is doing it, I feel like that's the key, because the way that like I've heard about a consumption lounge in Mundelein where they like limit the amount you consume, and like even when you consume, you can only be there for a certain time, and then you have to stay there.
You have to be there first. Yes, you have to stay there for a certain amount, according to what they say. But I've heard that like you also can't hold somebody, like you're not able to. So it's kind of weird.
Yeah. It's like, are you detaining me, or am I free to go?
Yeah. Is Molly's Joint, is the dispensary a state licensed dispensary?
Yeah, it's
then their next. Okay.
Yep, it's Parkway Dispensary, owned by the 1937 Group. Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
So-
I think the only two that I knew outside of that was Luna Lounge and then obviously the Rise, the Mundelein.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I take that back. I have been to one other like IDFPR fucking consumption lounge. And yeah, dude, I guess I can talk shit about him now because I don't think they exist anymore. What were they? They were the owner of it came on, Scott Weiner, who's a pretty big person in like the Chicago restaurant industry. And I can't think. Nature's Grace and Wellness bought them. They were like they had a bakery on site. You know what I'm talking about?
Nope.
Damn. Well, we did a podcast from there once, and yeah, I remember them being really weird about it. Like, technically, in order to get to the consumption lounge, you had to go through the dispensary. There was just a bunch of weird rules. I was reading the rules, and it was like, you can't bring your own weed. It's like, well, I did. So, it was bullshit like that. So,
Yeah, I always wondered how do you regulate that? And if that's the level of regulation that we're going through, so I have to go into your dispensary, I have to crack the package that I'm not supposed to carry out of here because of a smell-proof container, and then I also smell like cannabis, which is still ground free. You get pulled out of a car, like it's almost like there's no level of. And don't get me wrong, do you put your stuff in the trunk and you've taken all your provisions to be as upstanding as you can, no matter what, could you be messed with by the policy enforcement?
yeah, that's a good question. It's a really good question.
Yeah.
This next one will be interesting to see. I've not seen language surface for in a while, but Cannabis Equity Coalition says that, and they seem agnostic on this. I am, I guess, slightly agnostic on the topic, but let me just introduce the topic. So it's this idea of regulatory consolidation. It's this idea that we don't have one single cannabis agency or commission. It's been talked about for years at this point. And at one time, and we covered this at the time, the Cannabis Business Association of Illinois supported the idea of a commission. And it seemed like the Cannabis Regulation Oversight Office was also supportive of a commission. If I recall correctly, some reporting by grownin.com. I might be recalling incorrectly. Anyway, there was a change in leadership in the Cannabis Regulation Oversight Office. And I don't know if that had to do with it or what, but since then, we've seen the state push for a cannabis agency. Look, I go back and forth. I've asked policymakers. I've asked the person that helped create the freaking Cannabis Commission in Massachusetts on this show, like, what is the difference between a commission and an agency? I get different answers all across the board. One thing I know about the commission in Massachusetts is that anytime they meet, it has to be live streamed on the internet.
Oh, nice.
And all I'm saying is, and look, it's not beautiful. It's, as David Lakeman, a regulator from this state, has said, you get to see it, warts and all. In other words, like,
yeah.
It can be ugly, but the point is that it's all transparent and we can all call it how we see it, right? And I will say that I guess I'm agnostic of commission or agency, but we need to do it live. We need to stream it live. There needs to be more transparency, because right now, frankly, like, I don't know what's going on. I don't know who's doing what. And like, there just needs to be transparency. And I'm not saying that, like I said, I'm not saying the CCC in Massachusetts is perfect, but the fact that we can know it's not perfect because we can watch all the streams right now, like, that's just seems great.
So then is that like taking all of the agencies and lumping them under one umbrella that are operating in the cannabis space? So like IDFPR, AG, and ISP all kind of send their people to one commission, and then those people oversee the operations of, yeah, I hear that.
Yeah. My thing is, I don't see what's stopping them from doing that anyway. They always say that they don't have authority and that they can't communicate between all the agencies, but it's like, dude, we live in the modern era with phone and email. And they've explained a few technical barriers where it's like literally the systems don't communicate. So that's a technical thing. But like
that was what the metric was supposed to solve, yeah?
Well, at least with regard to seed to sale, but there's been other things that I've heard from like the cultivation side where it's like, I can't remember exactly what somebody was telling me, but it was like literally taking this system and then like in order to port that data over to IDFPR, like, so, you're going from agriculture side to the retail side, that there was like in the past, some things that literally couldn't communicate. So they're like, the reasons are all over the board. But like I say, whatever we do, I just want it to be streamed live on the internet.
Dude, of what we're talking about here, that is the best. If they could, like, transparency is the biggest thing here, and their quarterly reports or whatever it is that they send out, or some of them that are monthly, like, they just don't paint the picture of truth of what's going on in there. It's kind of, what they want you to believe when they want you to believe it.
Right. So that was the kind of report from the Cannabis Equity Illinois Coalition meeting that I attended. It was definitely interesting, and like I said, I really hope we see some movement on some of these things. I'll be candid with you, and we're about to play a segment with Jason Brown from Illinois News Joint. Neither of us feel extremely confident that we'll see something like that happen. But before we do that, to sort of clarify what I just said, I'm not aware of anybody that's very optimistic that we'll see anything move forward in Illinois.
No.
But
take the little wins when you get the little wins, but these are big victories. These are things that, like, they feel like winning an entire war, and there's like 5-6 different fronts that you need to win different wars on. So I don't know.
Speaking of winning different wars on different fronts, I think that, these cannabis drinks have done a lot for the normalization of cannabis. And it's interesting. I don't know if you saw this, but you'll be able to get THC drinks at the United Center soon. So that's the same place that is the home of the Bulls and the Blackhawks, and that's definitely interesting.
Well, yeah, from 0.4 per milligrams per container to making it into the big stage seems like a disconnect that isn't. I don't know how the hell it's just like, how do you draw a line from there to there? It doesn't make any sense at all.
Yeah, well, and when you see like companies like Curaleaf back out of hemp, but then other people I've seen many brands announce like, no, we're going to continue to do hemp. Even I think Glass House Brands was mentioning they're going to continue going forward with one of their greenhouses that's going to be dedicated to hemp. It's like, you got to wonder where certain people are placing certain bets, and you're wondering who's going to come out on the right, who's going to be right, well, I think what is the future going to look like?
Yeah, 100%. Aaron and I kind of talked about this the other day. Like, until somebody gets made the example of, there's no real true law about this. It's all interpretation. We can't go back to any cases and go, here's what happened there, so now we have to follow that trend. It will be that the first case will come up at some point. And I think, like, we just saw it with like Chicago making their rules about hemp and what they believe is correct or not correct. And now it's just interpreting what Chicago has to say about it. And as long as you live in Chicago, everybody who lives in Chicago goes, well, we just follow state law. Who cares what the federal, guidelines say to begin with? Because 0.4 was a federal thing, right? And Schedule 1 is a federal thing that no state has been abiding by for however long, right? Like, nobody cares about that. So as long as your state has your back, then keep pushing with it. And like we just saw in Chicago, drinks are good to go. Other cannabis packaged things are fine, but get caught with a single gram of hemp flower or whatever it is that is THCA and pay $1,000 a gram or whatever they said. But yeah, and my guesstimation is if you wanted me to gamble on it, if you wanted me to put my actual money on it, there will be somebody who gets caught with right under, that real crazy number. Cause I think 5,000 grams is the number that takes it over the top or whatever. And the state will give somebody a $4.5 million lawsuit for having 4,500 grams of this stuff, right about 10 units of stuff. And then, anything like, so nobody's holding it. They're going to try to make an example of one person who's a small, tiny ass fish and a tiny ass fry in the big ocean. But that's just my guesstimation. Before we figure anything out, we're going to see somebody else get screwed by the laws here, would be my guess.
Yeah. It's posts like these that are interesting. I'll read it out. Ben Kovler, who's the same CEO of the drink that's going to be at the United Center. To your point, he said, in case you missed it, Chicago passes an intoxicating hemp ban with a drink carve out. And he said, and he's got pictures of his senorita. So like I say, it's interesting to see people place bets, on this. And from what I'm hearing, a lot of people are betting on the idea that low-dosed drinks will survive a hemp ban, that they're going to revisit the definition somehow, and that low-dose drinks will get the green light. I wish it wasn't low-dosed only, because I love my high-dose drinks like these that are up on the shelf. But
yeah, but again, it's an interpretation of the words, because if you say per package or per serving size or per whatever, then what workarounds are it's because all you're going to do is make me make a workaround to make it deliverable enough to you. So, okay, you say each container or each serving size can only be 5 milligrams, let's call it. Okay, well, in one can, but then what if we add like a little additive on the side, a little fucking package that you put on the side, and you increase it to wherever you want it to go? Like, there's so many workarounds to make it so that you could do whatever you want.
Yeah, I agree. Dr. Danknug's drinks are surviving because of big alcohol and other interests. There's a lot of conversation about that online. It's let's just understand. Genetic Memory Farm says, let's just understand this in the terms of context. We will all largely follow the biggest legitimate local authority. As long as the federal government doesn't have its act together, state reigns supreme.
Yeah, well said.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, speaking of legislation, Dave, if you're able to stick around, that's awesome. I'd love to hear what you think about this next segment. We're going to be bringing Jason Brown on from IllinoisNewsJoint.com. We just talked about, before we were talking about the hemp thing, in case you're just tuning in, we were just talking about the Illinois Cannabis Equity Cannabis Coalition. I don't know. I'm so high, I forget their name. But they, we talked about their legislative priorities, right? I feel bad. I want to get that right. But Cannabis Equity Illinois Coalition. That's what it is. Thank you. Sorry about that, folks. We are actually now going to talk about legislation that's actually proposed. Like, this could get movement. Like there's a realm of possibility, because this is language that has been introduced. And so let's do it, folks. Let's bring on Jason from IllinoisNewsJoint.com. Who's a and I thought we might do a quick rundown. I know you've been covering the new legislation that's been coming out on your website, IllinoisNewsJoint.com, which I'm displaying. We're live right now. Give me give me just a second. This is what happens sometimes when you're right live. In technical difficulties, right? Fuck it, we'll do it live. I spoke with Jason earlier, and I want to make sure we get him the proper intro. You know what? I'll show you. Here's behind the scenes. Fuck it, we'll just do it the way it was shot. All right, let me get this restarted. Here we go. All right, and in this segment, restart that sentence because I'm flubbing my words. And in this segment, I'll be joined by Jason Brown from IllinoisNewsJoint.com. Jason, thank you for joining the show. How's it going?
It's good. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And I thought we might do a quick rundown. I know you've been covering the new legislation that's been coming out on your website, IllinoisNewsJoint.com, which I'm displaying a peek at on screen right now. Thank you for the coverage that you do. And let's just jump right in with the first bill that you had reported on. Do you want to just give like a brief description of, it looks like House Bill 4286, which I'm displaying on screen right now?
That is the Equity Commission bill, which is, again, a bill or a provision that they have tried to insert in the last 3 or 4 sessions at least. So it's not anything new. It's the same thing that they've been trying to do. I think if I looked back, I'm guessing it's probably exact same wording as it was the last time they introduced it, maybe under a different bill name. So, yep, that one's been I'm guessing at least 3 times that has been introduced as a bill or as part of a bill.
Yeah, and it looks like it just expands who might be on the board, provides that they should produce a report, and maybe a few other small provisions. Any other thing that you think might be worth mentioning?
I think more than anything, I think it tries to make the board more diverse from different places that they think is a better fit for people who should be in charge of that. That's what I think would be the argument of the bill.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll just say that I think of you when I look at this provision. This would be interesting. Further add to the membership of the commission 1 individual who's a journalist and representative of the news media. That'll be interesting to see who gets appointed to that. They're looking for people with experience covering national and local cannabis markets. So,
yeah, I joked to Michael. I was like, that's kind of a small pool right there, relative in Illinois.
Yeah, straight up. So that'll be interesting to see. And I just want to mention one more time as we go through this, folks, the links will be in the description, but just go to IllinoisNewsJoint.com to see all of this coverage. Any other thoughts before we switch over to Representative Morgan's new cannabis reform bill?
I don't think so.
Cool. Well, let's throw that up on screen. Representative Morgan introduced a bill with several provisions. What caught your eye? What's standing out to you on this provision?
One thing Representative Morgan does well is at least he pushes for medical anything. I mean, I'm trying to think of who else has actually had any kind of amendment or provision for the medical patients that's been introduced besides him. So again, this is the omnibus bill repackaged. But what it does is it allows the biggest thing I think is it allows medical patients to shop anywhere, any dispensary with your discount and your allotments. This should be a slam dunk for Illinois. I guess there are reasons why some dispensaries wouldn't be interested in it. There is payments you have to pay them to become that. So that would suck. I'm guessing that's just more out of your overhead. But overall, for the patients, they need to figure it out and get this done. This should just be one of the easiest. You can almost take this one aside and just make it a single one bill and say, do it or not. Are you going to vote for this or not? And then have nothing else. It's been in, how many you think? At least 5 to 6 attempts at passing some version of that already. And then all the other ones are, just the normal ones that are in there. There's the drive up one in there still. There's badging stuff that that dispensaries and agents and stuff want. And, and that actually doesn't go far enough is what the agents who contact me are like, we still want this or this. So those, just logistical, technical things, again, should not be something we shouldn't be able to pass. I mean, we should be able to, the legislature should be able to pass just simple logistic fixes in how, the labor force works, or is badged, or is, brought on board, or what, all those things.
Well said. One thing that stood out to me that I thought was notable, and you mentioned it in your coverage, was that in addition, if this were to come to pass, dispensaries will have to develop and implement a patient prioritization plan. And it gives a little bit of flexibility as to what exactly that looks like, whether that be a dedicated line or, certain times of day. But I like this because, as far as I know and understand, like, yes, some dispensaries do this today, but it's not necessarily codified, which is why we've seen some dispensaries stop prioritizing medical patients at medical licensed dispensaries. So this would make it, like you said, not only so that patients could shop everywhere at that medical tax rate, but from what I understand, that dispensaries would have to implement a patient prioritization plan, which I thought was really notable.
Well, also on that, right below it, I think, or in the bill is, I think it also says that you have to have like, I don't know if they're a caregiver or some kind of advocate for medical patients when they come in that they can talk to, an advisor. I can't remember how they worded it.
It looks like you've reported, in addition, dispensaries must have a certifying healthcare professional on site.
There you go. So what does that mean? And then again, is that do you have to hire a whole new person for that? That's not something dispensaries are. That would be another, again, dispensaries are we're asking Illinois to have the dispensaries take on this burden instead of just allowing the state to do it legally. So they're having to give the discounts. I mean, that's not the dispensaries. They're eating that discount. They're not. I mean, if they are giving the discount to the medical patients, they're the ones who are, eating that cost. And then if they have to pay a fee just to have the medical and then have somebody on site and have prioritized and have so much. Now that I don't think the prioritize and having as much, I mean, geez, everything's medical if you want it to be products wise. So,
right.
And it's not like that first year where all of a sudden everything was, there was 5 items on the menu, literally. That was it. Because everything was just sold out so fast and everything. So we're not there. We're way beyond that.
Yeah, I agree with you. I had some people writing into me because we discussed some of these bills last week's show, and they were specifically asking about those adequate supply provisions. And I said, like, first of all, if you look into the CRTA, I think they define adequate supply as basically like equivalent to the last 6 months or something like that. But second of all, like you said, I think the only time that would come into play is if there was some massive shortage, and it has come into play in the past. Like you said, when we first started off, you actually saw some medical dispensaries stop adult use sales entirely and only do medical sales in order to comply with that adequate supply provision. But like you say, and I just really want to emphasize this because I had a lot of people writing in about this. I personally don't see that happening. Knock on wood. I personally don't see it coming to that.
I could see a scenario where a deep Southern Illinois Southern Illinois dispensary that's not a medical, that has to go medical, may not have enough RSO that gets sold out, or have real medical, like a suppository, or whatever it is. I could see that, but that should be easy to overcome or plan for, or once you have 1 year cycle of purchasing, you pretty much can understand where the ebbs and flows and what you need, and then if you'll know when the medical patients are coming in and buying more, so you'll have to adjust to your inventory or whatever it is.
Yeah. Well said. Any other thoughts on this piece of legislation that was introduced by Representative Morgan?
The slips are on there. You might. I don't. Again, not sure if any bill is going to be moving forward, but if there is one, I would say this is the one that is probably has the most beneficial to definitely for the medical patients, and then to just recreational dispensaries and agents and some other stuff that's in there that's just logistic stuff again that they've been trying to pass for 3 years, and it's just, you know, it's always thrown in again with inside an omnibus, so it's all or nothing, and of course it's been nothing. So
right. And I'll just underline what Jason said. If you see, I'm displaying on screen right now, it says witness slips for this bill can be filled out here. So I'll have that link in the show notes. And if you want to, you can fill out the witness slips. And in case you didn't know, folks, this is like the way that you can participate in the legislative process. Basically, if this were to get called in committee and you write down that you'd like to testify either through a written statement or vocally, you could get that opportunity. So just wanted to mention that. Setting that aside, though, as Jason said, this would just be a way to show your support for this legislation. So wanted to underline that. Once again, that coverage is at illinoisnewsjoint.com. The link to this article will be in the show notes. Any other thoughts before we get to this cannabis labeling and signage regulation bill that we're wondering where it came from and why?
No, I'm trying to figure out. There's one other thing in this bill that I thought was pretty beneficial, but I cannot remember what it was off the top of my head right now, because we've had, you know, and if you go back on the website and scroll down even more, I mean, this bill, the second one there, it's basically this one. They're pretty much the same.
Oh, this
they have a lot of the same provisions in them.
Yeah, let's bounce over to that. This one was filed by Representative Smith, which is not a name I've heard a lot with regard to the subject of cannabis, but of course, as Representative Ford prepares to perhaps step away, maybe we see others step up. Thoughts on this one?
Somebody's gonna have to step up to introduce them. I mean, who else will? It's when I was looking through it, it's a lot of the same provisions and amendments was in the last bill we were talking about. I can't remember whatever number that was now.
Yeah, like you said.
Again, that one also gives you the caregivers and medical patients to shop anywhere. But it also, I think, adds some different stuff that are maybe some equity stuff that's in there.
Interesting.
Oh, and then I think it's locations of dispensaries and stuff like that people are interested in getting changed or fixed, or so you can be closer to a dispensary than you were before, or.
Very interesting. Yeah, I see language about mergers.
Yes.
Relocation, recession of conditional licenses. Be interesting to see how any of that, if this came to pass, which we should reiterate, these are just bills that have been proposed. You know, they have to be signed into law.
Well, they have to get out of committee first.
True. Before they
get a first read and they slam it into the committee, and then, you know, that's where bills go to die quickly, or really slowly.
Very slowly, as we've seen. Yeah. So like you say, very interesting to see this come out as well. You know, I've asked advocates about both of these measures, both Representative Morgan's and Representative Smith, and I've not personally heard anything back, but have you heard? I've not heard anything like, I guess, set in stone, like we as an advocacy group support this legislation yet. They said, Cole, we're reading through it all. We'll get back to you. I didn't know if and you don't have to name it if you don't want to, but have you just heard, generally speaking, from the industry, how they're feeling about these provisions?
I mean, I think the industry would welcome almost all these.
Right.
It's not the industry that's fighting against it. Now, there might be a big corporation that wants, you know, maybe doesn't want the medical, you know, but really the big corporations, why wouldn't you want all 10 of your dispensaries instead of just one selling medical patients too? So, it's not like we have expand your plant count on growing for medical. It's not any of these provisions that, some have been, the bigger companies would fight against. It's just, again, a lot of that stuff is just normal fixing what you need to do for a regular law, which is you pass a law and then you see what's working or not working or needs adjusted. And if it's logistic stuff that's killing dispensaries because you have to wait 6 months for somebody to get approved just to be hired or whatever, I don't even know, some of the nightmares that people are emailing me about. A lot of those could just be fixed easily, or, at least be addressed in a way that would improve and streamline processing a lot faster for, people hiring and giving it raises or advances or all these other things that they're trying to do for the licensing and the staffing.
Yeah. Well said.
Who doesn't want drive up? Most of them already have it. They're ready for it.
Right.
Dispensaries, that is.
Well, and I guess maybe this is a good segue, but I just meant to ask, like, how do you have you heard how they're feeling? Like, of course, they would recommend or they would welcome this progress, but I didn't know if you're feeling, if you're hearing anybody especially optimistic or on the opposite side of that spectrum. Didn't know, just generally speaking, how people are feeling.
I don't think I know anybody who's optimistic about Illinois passing cannabis legislation, because if past prologue, we know what it is. We're going to get these introduced and people, if it's for or against something in the industry, then they get to go back and tell their constituents that I introduced this bill, and I'm doing something. But the bill never gets advanced. It barely gets out. Now who was it representative or senator that last session had the bill that's just needed the vote? Who? And I just thought she had so much courage.
Representative Ventura, or sorry, Senator Ventura.
Yes. Just so much courage to do that. For the risk reward is just not there for her. And, to even take it on, she did it. That's almost probably the furthest one of those bills have gotten to, to be able to pass, is just that one vote away. That would go straight to the desk of the governor, who is definitely going to, he's not going to veto that for sure. So that's the closest we've come to any of the new bills passing.
Right.
So I don't see why, if they haven't passed in the past, why they would all of a sudden just, people are going to vote for it. It's going to get through, or it's going to get out of committee. And, what's it doing in committee right now? What are they fixing in it? What are, usually when it goes to committee, it's because somebody's like, well, I might vote for this bill if you take that out of it. And then they got to go back and readjust it or whatever. And then you can get that 2 more votes. I don't see what are they trying to fix or adjust to get other votes or to move it forward.
Yeah.
I don't know the answer to that. So
yeah, no, just open questions. Yeah. It's good to talk through these things. It's good to let listeners think about these things as well. That's why I wanted to bring you on. I knew you'd have some insights to drop. So speaking of this, just moving on, there's a bill, as you reported, that would add more cannabis labeling and signage regulations. I was just reading that the Center Square posted that Tiffany Chappell Ingram from CBAI is looking to better understand the intent behind this bill. I think you and I are probably with Tiffany and kind of cocking your head to the side saying like, look, I'm not going to sit here and say I don't understand maybe perhaps adding a label, I guess, that says on the product that like what the Illinois poison center number is. I guess I'm not like opposed to really any of this stuff, but I think the question I asked you before on air is like, are they really going to put like one sign up that's going to solve all of these problems? And I think I'm happy that Tiffany is working to understand the intent behind this bill, because it's like, as she said, I think to the Center Square, there's really not a large number youth exposures, if you want to call it that, that can be traced back to the Illinois cannabis program?
Individually, I mean, if you're a parent, you should be doing the proper parenting. Just having a label that says keep out of reach of children or something about, again, what are you going to get on a label? You're going to get, let's just say we get an 1/8 pouch. On the back now we have 5 things that we have to have mandatory. So everyone's going to be this big and you can't read it anyway. Or, you know, if I'm old man, can't read it unless I'm taking my phone and enlarging it so I can see what it says. So if you're just going to have that, and what is the point of that? I agree with the hotline. I think that could be 1, 4 words or whatever with the hotline. I think that's actually probably a good idea. If something does happen, it's easy to call. And to say where am we at now. Most people who are taking edibles and stuff, I don't know anybody who's just willy-nilly leaving shit out in front of young kids.
Right.
I just don't. Most people I know are pretty almost overprotective and almost over, hiding or whatever their stash from kids or especially young kids who are just getting in it. Look, you got an 18-year-old or 17-year-old that wants to steal your shit, just like when I did when I was younger and getting in the liquor cabinet. You're not going to stop them. You weren't going to stop me. So I'm not going to stop them, I don't think. That's just natural life stuff that's going to happen. And, again, I hope we don't try to treat it like our parents, or it's like sit you down and you have to smoke the whole pack of cigarettes now because you got caught smoking one. We're not going to do anything like that, hopefully. So I think the best thing for that is just educating look, my house, we have a 16-year-old. I have a fridge, and in the back corner is where my wife's alcohol is and where my THC drinks are. Those are off limits to her. She knows it. She always knows it. It's never been an issue. We've never had a problem with it. It's just part of how we adjust and deal with, me having that and having alcohol just the same.
Right. Well said. Yeah, this is an issue that comes down to responsible parenting. And like you say, it's not unique to even cannabis. Like you say, alcohol we deal with as a society. I would even take it a step further and say there's plenty of cleaning products around the house. Tide pods you need to make sure that the kids don't get a hold of, right? We could go on and on.
Prescription drugs. That's something that's been probably the most stolen type of drug there is from parents and stuff. So
right. Well said. So yeah,
I'm not sure who is lobbying for the labeling. We always put it under the guise of we have to save the children, but there's never ever any data saying that the children are actually in danger in any way, or that we have. And I'm guessing that I haven't looked in a while, probably in a couple years now from the last time. I'm gonna have to try to look it up to see what the emergency data, where how many children overdoses are coming in. I'm guessing it's higher than what it used to be, just because there's a lot more people using it, and
they might feel more comfortable being honest too.
Say it again. Oh yes, that's true.
I always think about that whenever people talk about a swing in numbers. It's like, yes, okay, maybe more people were exposed and maybe those things happen, but also are people just less nervous to be honest because it's legal, so. And
if I want to see how's that track and relate to alcohol. When we get we're talking about 2020 to 2022 and 23, then that's, we have to compare that to other things because of the pandemic was pushing all kinds of addictions and, overuse of drugs and alcohol and everything else, and just other obsessions. It's just, it was very conducive to your obsessive sides at that time. So is the alcohol overdoses more for kids and adults too, or whatever it is? Is the prescription drugs overdoses the same, or is the cannabis ones higher or leading those? And I just don't think it is. I'm guessing it's probably the same across the board. And especially once we plateau and get in more of this mature market, and everybody's kind of gets in a system of how you stay away from these, or you do these, or you don't, or we hide these better, or whatever it is, then I think that it'll even tamp it down a little more.
Yeah, well said. Well, we'll close out with this last piece of legislation you brought to my attention. Once again, folks, I'm joined by Jason Brown from IllinoisNewsJoint.com, and all the links that we've discussed today will be in the show notes. This last one, like I said, sounds like you'll be reporting on later this evening, so we'll share that link as well in the show notes. You brought to my attention that there's a bill that would actually prevent the Community College Cannabis Vocational Training Pilot Program, what a mouthful, from expiring. You want to briefly talk about what this even is, so that people have a better idea of what we're talking about?
The College Cannabis Pilot Program was implemented in the original bill, kind of the CTRA bill. So colleges could grow cannabis, teach cannabis, have cannabis classes, and then there was a couple other things in there for it. I think they gave out 13. I might be wrong on that. Maybe at the beginning there was like 13 licenses given out to colleges. Most of them were community colleges, and then they were supposed to develop a curriculum, and then start that program. They're also, I don't know if you remember, but do you remember in like the first couple years when they actually, in the bill also has that companies had to give so much money back to certain charities or whatever. So what they were doing was giving like $1,500 to these programs that didn't even start, which was kind of, like paying off your own labor force, which I guess is not the worst thing you could do with it. Sure. Then these pilot programs, I don't have the numbers, but I know that there are several that didn't start. There's at least one or two that says we're not starting and until we get full disclosure and the okay legally from the state or whatever we need that we think through our university or college is acceptable to them, that they're not going to do it. And then there's other programs who've tried to start and are struggling to get this program going. And then I think just everywhere in between, really. I don't know how many programs are actually going right now. I know you have Oakton has, DePage has stuff going, and there's a few others that are actually growing cannabis and using these licenses and stuff. Now, I think the bill had that if you didn't get it going and you didn't have your curriculum and all that started and everything, or whatever, all the guidelines you had to have, then that program would end in July. And I think that's what this bill is trying to address is, hurry up to see if we can just extend that date, and then figure out how to get them going or not going, or what they're going to do with the whole program, I would say.
Gotcha. Well, that's...
I'm guessing a lot of these junior colleges were probably in, economic areas that are, don't have the funding and the money for other things like that have these, and that it's probably even harder for them to, you're a junior college and funding is already an issue no matter what, at whatever college you're at. And so you get money and you're trying to start programs. Are you going to start the new, we have an AI class that's going to do this, or are you going to say, hey, let's start this cannabis program that's going to have a bunch of people say, what the fuck? We don't want that. We want, that's not whatever it is. So there could be a lot of pushback to it too, that I've heard.
Yeah. Well said. Well, Jason, I want to thank you for coming on and covering all of the bases that we have. I know that people can stay updated on when, or if, I think is really the question, if this legislation moves, at IllinoisNewsJoint.com. Before you go, did you want to say anything else, plug anything?
I also sent some questions and we're trying to get answered about the new guidelines for visiting facilities, because we used to have to like get the permission, at least a couple days ahead to tell us what time we would show up exactly and everything. Now it says that we can't do that at all. We can't go in and film. We can't use advertising. My question was, the bill and even there's no definition for advertising. So what is advertising actually? Is that you paying a news outlet, or is that because if you can't grow flower in your grow, which is what your actual product is, on Instagram, if that's an advertisement and you can't do that, that's where are we at for the advertising? Is that just is social media advertising? Because technically, yes, it is. Right. So I'm really interested in where they have to define it, because if they don't define it, then what does it mean?
Yeah, that just seems. Hopefully they give you good clarification. Please keep me posted. I don't typically do like cultivation tours, but I saw when that came out and I was like, what is this going to mean? And so I didn't realize.
That's just like that's just something they could change at any time. And so why did they add it all of a sudden? That wasn't I got the old document and that new one, and that's just added in and who did that and why? They told me they're trying to find the right person to answer that, which probably means going through a lawyer, I guess. I don't know. So we'll see. I'm guessing we'll get something vague back or nothing at all in general.
Yeah. Well, hopefully you get something clear back so that you can, know how to proceed with what you guys do. I know you try to document many different, I guess, layers, for lack of better words, of the cannabis industry. And it would seem really silly if somehow you were prevented from, going to a cultivation center or something. Just, again, not even to advertise, but to just document, like as a journalist. So.
We do have advertising parts in the cannabis bill. You can't have an advertisement that has the plant, a seed, or flower on any advertising. So like when you see a billboard, you won't see those in Illinois because that's illegal. Sure. Again, though, a billboard, that's obviously advertising. I'm sure that fall under it, but how far does that go to? Is a personal person, as a brand rep who is just, showing a picture on is that advertising too? Because technically I would say that is.
Well, and I just think back to like the days of Grown In. Mike Fouché went around and did cultivation facility tours, but he was doing it very matter-of-factly, but you could still argue him just covering the canopy space and the technology that the cultivation center has. You could argue that's advertising to an investor or something. I don't know. I could just see how it could get a slippery slope.
And when you're a grower, that is your product. So you're making your product something harder to market than just a vape or something else of somebody else's product of every other product that's in Illinois. So, you're specifically narrowing it down to this one person who can't do this.
Yeah. Well, that's going to be interesting to see how it plays out.
Well, I don't know if that helped or made anybody happier or sadder or what it is. But again, I am so just, I've said this 100 times, but the cynicism I have for Illinois politics is about as high as it's ever been in general. So,
yeah.
And then the cannabis industry is not helping any.
Sure. Well, hey, I can tell you for certain that you made me happy by setting aside the time to chat with me today about this. I know we can both agree we'd love to see this stuff go across the finish line. But the very least we can do is at least just tell the people it's out there. And I just want to encourage people, go to IllinoisNewsJoint.com, read up, check out their content. And Jason, thank you for joining me again today.
Thanks for having me.
Oh snap, we're back and we're live.
Hey,
Hey, how's it going?
good man.
I
I
had to
had some
turn
ice
my mic
cream.
back on. Oh, you had ice cream? Nice.
Yeah,
What kind?
yeah.
Like vanilla, Rocky Road. What was it?
I went cookies and cream because it's all we had. But I'm like a ice cream fiend, to be honest with you.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. I don't see any discrimination in any of them.
What are your any takeaways from the segment with Jason from IllinoisNewsJoint.com?
First thing I gotta say, love the guys over there at Illinois News Joint. Jason Brown and Michael Lasley are super good dudes, and they really do cover this stuff in a way that is like up to date and very cool. There were like 3 points through that really stood out to me. Um, I think he has a great perspective. I think Jason always has a really good perspective on these things. Um, but the college thing, like let's all just hope that continues. That's super cool. Um, the when he was initially talking at the beginning, um, what was the conversation about? God bless America. I just smoked right before I started this too, so now
It's okay.
I'm
We talked about the Cannabis Equity Commission. We talked about the Bob Morgan and his bill, the omnibus with medical patients at all dispensaries and stuff like that.
yeah. Oh, that's it. That's it. Medical at every dispensary. He actually brought up a few points that like made me think for a minute. And one, he was talking about like, does it make sense for all dispensaries to become medical dispensaries? And he really had two really good perspectives. I like the idea that like these dispensaries that already are recreational, trying to cater to the medical market, are taking a decrease by giving discounts to most medical patients. I imagine everyone that I've been around, and I would imagine most recreational places are giving med customers some level of discount. So if it was a fee that they had to pay to become licensed or have the back end of metric, like I would imagine they'd make that money immediately back, but it would also give a backbone to the medical market again. I know a lot of people who stopped getting their medical card because of how inconvenient it is to use the medical program. And that sucks. You know, Aaron and I talk about it a lot. You know that there's a level of like taxation in there and state funding that's coming from it that obviously would incentivize the state from maybe not doing it or pushing for it. But at the other end of that, it's like, well, all of your licensing fees from all of the medical patients would end up probably offsetting that to the point where I don't see there being like a negative for anybody, if financially at least. And it would only give more uh, movement towards this medical program, which again, like in the colleges, the programs that they set up are a lot of times based in the medical side of things to begin with, more of the sciences and the maths of what's going on there. So I'm like a big fan of hopefully those things changing, but I'll kind of follow your sentiment. Like, I don't know that much is going to happen anytime soon. I don't know that there's big movements coming from all of the, um, you know, bills that are being
Right. And like Jason said, it's not that the industry doesn't support these things. It's just that the energy just isn't there. And I don't know how to bring that back other than I was saying it the other day and I had this light bulb go off, which it's funny, it's probably because, and I'm making a joke, folks. It's probably because we smoke so much on the show that I forgot this, but money means a lot in politics. And,
yes,
all that money poured in between 2020 and like 2014 or so, maybe it was 2016. I can't remember. The Chicago Tribune reported on it. I'll try to throw that link in the show notes. It's a great read. And I just, I think that's what it takes to get things done in Springfield, and we've not. I don't know. I guess I shouldn't say definitively we've not seen that type of push in a while, but because I've not looked into the numbers, it's actually really hard to trace those numbers. It takes. I had one of the reporters on that's done that. That helped do that like kind of tracing. I believe he contributed to the report, Ray Long, from the Tribune. But the long story short is, like I said, I can't say definitively that big money hasn't been pouring in. I'm sure people have been paying lobbying money, and contributing to people's campaigns, but that was my speculation. It's like maybe there's just not as much energy as there was, but I could be wrong.
Yes.
Who knows?
I dig that. I also think that, like, and you guys talked about it too. There is like the child use or kids getting access to. It's always protect the children, protect the children. And he brought up a few very good points about it. Like, how much more can you protect them? Like, you can't put it on a label to make it any more protecting. The packaging itself is so hard to open up that actual medical patients who have dexterity issues and whatnot aren't capable of opening the packaging itself. There's so many weird limitations to getting access to it, but at the same time, it's like everybody, like, I had access to this thing when I was a child. I was 13 years old when it became readily available to me. And it wasn't because of my parents at all. It was because get out into the world and there's things happening. So, and I think what helps limiting early access to it is educating people on the access to it, where, the amount. And I saw a lot of people come through. I watched parents who parents that wouldn't even tell the other parent, a husband that wouldn't tell the wife, or the wife that wouldn't tell the husband, but take it the next level, like, oh, we're never going to tell our kids about this. And I was like, why not? Wouldn't it be exponentially better for you to tell your kids what this thing is than to have some other kid tell your kids what this is? And that's what's happening out there, because again, for them to think that there's no avenue of access, it's crazy. And they say, okay, well, make sure the stores aren't selling it to people. Well, no shit, Sherlock. But like, liquor stores didn't used to sell me alcohol, but I had access to it when I was underage. You know what I mean? And so no matter what, somewhere along the lines, and whether it's black market or, there's so many accessible ways. If you wanted to get something, you're going to get it. And I think the best way to do it is with some level of education. So talk to your kids, and like he said too, it's so silly. Who is just leaving their shit out nonchalant? And at one point he said, it's not like if you wanted to, you couldn't, like if your kids want access to it, they're going to get access to it. And I'll take it a step further and say, that's not true. For $75 on Amazon, you can buy a fingerprint scannable, a code driven lockbox that you could put your cannabis in, and no child is going to get into it. They don't have your biometrics, right? Or you could put a big enough password. It just, if you wanted to be that strict and limit everything, then you could. But I think there's a better means of going about it, and education's that way.
Yeah. Brandon commented and said there's certainly an argument to be made that prohibition makes access for children easier, which is an interesting.
Yes.
Because, like when you're not mandated to ID, you don't ID, right?
Yes.
Here's a good question. Do we need college classes to grow good cannabis or food? Our grandparents did it with no issues. We've had the Rodale Institute since post World War II. Yeah, I get what you're saying. But I think it's a good thing that higher education is pursuing cannabis studies, So
yeah. No, there's nobody in the world who I know who's logical and smart and free thinking for themselves that doesn't believe that education systems aren't just a means of profit for something out there. It's not really in the means of education. So it's for the individual to go get educated is all I'm saying. And the more things you have access to learn, the better off the individual is. So I don't think net positive or negative. I think it's great for the individual. I don't know if for the, masses out there, if you need to learn from there or learn from grandpa and grandma, either way, knowledge is good to be passed along.
Right. I mean, personally, my grandpa and grandpa did not do that, so I had to learn from the internet. But still, I think it's cool that like because I went to a Southern Illinois University, and they were like teaching people how to make cuttings and transplant and do the whole life cycle of the cannabis plant.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think there's value in that, like especially if you do have the privilege to go to school, but didn't have the privilege to have like parents like that, I guess, that could teach you, or anybody in your life like that could at least give you, because like again, just in the case of SIU, I know they have like tents. They like show you, like they literally, one of the tasks, if I recall correctly, is that like you need to set up your grow tent and like set up the lighting, set up the ventilation, and like do the research, figure it out, and like they give you the the research as well. They like teach you, I'm sure, all the basics, but like you have to do it. You have to apply that knowledge, I guess, is my point. And I think for people that can't drop the money to do a grow tent, like I was privileged enough to do, or it's not even about the money sometimes, because you can afford to go to college. Like if you don't have the space to, some people literally just can't grow in their house, and do all those experiments. Yes. So
and we're even talking about for personal use, but at the level that they're speaking, it could be used in the horticultural level of like I mean, making hemp products theoretically for its fibers and stuff. It doesn't necessarily always have to be for the flowering, budding plant of this thing. And, in the same way, you would go into a FFA class, which is farmers, like you would go into this level of horticulture or whatever. And instead of learning to grow corn, you learn to grow what could be used as paper and bedding and feed and clothes, and the list goes on, right?
Yeah. Genetic, the commenter says they agree, and we need to concentrate on home grow rights that will support everything else and increase our depth of cultural knowledge. I totally agree with that. That's well said. That'll put the hands right, put the plant in the hands of the people and help them learn that way, because that's how I learned. Just not even about just cannabis, but just growing plants in general. I learned a lot through my experience in growing cannabis. Well, Dave, any other things that stood out about the legislation? Like, and it wasn't just me. I wanted to remind folks that Jason also felt, let's just say, because I don't want to speak for themselves, you can rewind the tape. I don't mean to speak for them. I meant to say you can rewind the tape. But I recall them saying something to the effect of that they were also less than optimistic about, progress this year.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I think he said this is the exact verbiage from last year. I haven't read it side by side, but I imagine it's the same thing. It hasn't even made it out of committee yet. Like it'll go there to die before it ever even gets pushed to the next level. And like he said, when it's gotten to the point of vote, we were at the fucking 1 yard line ready to score the game-winning touchdown, and just to have the rug pulled out from you anyway is kind of, how do you reword the exact same thing that would just be more beneficial for all the constituents? Like all of us would benefit from a lot of these reform laws in cannabis. And as medical advocates, like it's really easy to hear that sentiment come from us, but at the same time, I'm really for even big cannabis companies having less regulation against them, and them having the ability to allow more production so that it drives costs down. And as long as there's a supply, and and we all have an obvious demand, it doesn't seem right to even be talking about prioritization because, like, you know, outside of barring again the initial wave of adult use, which came about and everybody rushed to the front door and said, let me try it, let me try it. That has gone away, and these cultivation centers have plenty. Plus, there's been more licenses issued since. And now that they have grown for the market, like the cannabis market will be fine, is all I'm saying. And I want them to thrive so that the rest of us have the ability to access this thing more reasonably, cheaper prices, with less imprisonment, which is I think the biggest thing out of all of it. You know, I want to see medical patients access to it, but boy, would I like to see people stop going to jail for it. No matter how much, it just doesn't make sense to me like this.
Yeah, it's got to end. That's like priority number one. Everybody's got to stop being arrested for cultivating the plant, possessing the plant, using the plant. And Christian Reichert joined me on the show the other day, and he was like, and Cole, you got to say distributing the plant too. And I was like, fair enough. You know, yeah, the licensing needs to be open and more accessible to everybody if you want to do that, you know. But first and foremost, we got to free the plant for the people. And Dave, I really appreciate you calling in for the broadcast. And folks, we're here every Tuesday at 7:15 p.m. The link is already live on YouTube for next Tuesday. So if you go over there, colememo.com/YouTube, and check out the live stream link for this coming Tuesday, which is going to be the 3rd, February 3rd. Folks, we're creeping on into February. So don't forget to get ready for Valentine's Day. Anyways. Or do whatever February means to you. I'm excited for spring and summer, and
I'm excited for the snow to go away, to be honest with you.
Same. I'm looking forward to warmth. Forward to warmth. So on that note, folks, thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Cole Memo. We'll see you on the next one. Take care, everybody. And check out Aaron and Dave's work at SupportDope.com if you haven't already.
Yeah, Two Dope Dudes tomorrow on the YouTubes.
There you go.
Wednesday. Yep.
There you
Wednesday is the live premiere of Two Dope Dudes. And check me out on Thursday nights at Peace, Love, and Coke. Thanks, everybody.
Hell yeah.
Thank you, Cole. You're the man.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming on. Once again, that's tomorrow at 12:15. And then Thursday, what was that again?
8 p.m. Central.
There you go, folks. Check it out. All right. Thank you, everybody. Take care. Stay blazed.